Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hi students, welcome to the session. In this session, we are going to talk about the relationship of microorganisms and human beings. That is, microorganisms and us. Now, there are variety of microorganisms, as we've already seen that there are different kinds of microorganisms and they are grouped in various ways. Some of these microorganisms are harmful for us, whereas others are others are beneficial, right? So there are some of the microorganisms which are beneficial, whereas others are harmful, right? These harmful organisms are the ones which cause spoilage of our substances or our things and cause disease, whereas the beneficial microorganisms play different kinds of role which helps the humanity, right? So in this session we are going to talk about the friendly microorganisms. We are going to see that what are the ways in which the microorganisms play an important role, that means they benefit us, right? So what we are going to discuss is the or rather are the friendly microorganisms. What are the things that the microorganisms help us in doing? What are the things in our daily life we do not actually realize that are being done by the microorganisms for us, right? So there are different things which the microorganisms do for us. What are these? Let's discuss this in brief, and then we are going to pick them up one by one and we are going to discuss it in detail, right? So when we talk about the friendly microorganisms, the microorganisms are used for preparing curd, right? They are used for preparing curd and bakery items like your bread and cake for a very long time, right? So bakery items like bread and cake are made with the help of your microorganisms. Then microorganisms are used for the production of alcohol, right? These are the three things which are quite common and you might know about them. Apart from that, what else is the use of the microorganism? The microorganisms are used to clean the environment, right? They play an important role in cleaning the environment. How so? If you remember in your last class, you must have studied about the decomposers, right? These decomposers help in cleaning the environment. That is, whatever dead and decaying material is there, they decompose them and change them into simple substances or usable substances. We can take an example and how this cleaning the environment, this phenomena or this usage is important for us or is helpful for us is if we think about the waste that is being produced in our houses itself, like your vegetable peels, right? Vegetable peels, remains of animals, remains of animals and plants, remains of animals and plants, feces, etc. are all of these things are what? These are the waste products, right? So what happens is these waste products are processed or broken down, right? These waste products are broken down with the help of the bacteria, right? These are broken down with the help of the bacteria into usable substances. What are the usable substances? That means the nutrients which are released by this process of breaking down, that means decomposition. So whatever nutrients were trapped inside these vegetable peels or animal remains or the plant remains are utilized, first of all the whole complex organic matter is broken down with the help of the bacteria and it is converted into simpler substances, and these simpler substances are actually the usable substances which are utilized by the plants, right? It is mixed with the soil and is utilized by the plant, right? We've already seen that the the plants like manure is one of the things which is produced using the help of the microorganisms. Then apart from that, it is also used in the preparation of medicines, right? we will see that how the microorganisms help in the preparation of medicines in detail, but this is one of the uses of the microorganism. Then apart from that, they also have a role in soil fertility. How do they have the role in soil fertility? Because they are able to fix the nitrogen that is present in the environment and which is in the non-usable form for the plants, right? So the nitrogen which is present in the environment is in gaseous state and thus cannot be used by the plants. So these microorganisms increase the soil fertility by fixing the nitrogen. So these are the few things which are through which the microorganisms are useful for us, and that's why we call them as friendly microorganisms. So now let's pick up all of these things and how it is done one by one and discuss it. The very first thing which we are going to discuss is the making of curd and bread, right? Now, we've all seen our mothers making curd at home. What they do, simply they warm the milk and they add a little curd. They always have a small amount of curd in with them when they want to make curd. So a little amount of curd, maybe a tablespoon full of curd. They warm the milk, they add that little curd and keep it overnight. And what they do is they take it in a bowl and they close it, right, and they keep it overnight. The whole this setup is not kept in the fridge. It is actually kept outside in the kitchen where the environment is warm. And in the morning when you open that bowl, what do you see? You see that the milk has been converted into curd. So what exactly is happening that is converting the milk into the curd? So this whole conversion occurs because of a bacterium known as the lactobacillus, right? So this lactobacillus is the bacterium which is present inside the curd. These are several microorganisms that are present, and what they do is they promote the formation of the curd. That means they facilitate the formation of the curd. How do they facilitate it? That when in the milk, right? So in the milk, when you add, suppose this is the milk, when you add curd in it, right? So curd actually contains this bacteria, right? So this curd contains the lactobacillus, and as soon as you add the curd in the warm milk, what is happening? You are providing a favorable condition, that is warmth and obviously the nutrition that it gets from the milk. And what it does is the lactobacillus starts reproducing, right? It starts reproducing quite quickly inside the milk, right? Starts reproducing, that is multiplying inside the milk, and this causes the conversion of the milk into the curd, right? So in this way we see how the bacteria is involved in the formation of your curd. Apart from that, bacteria is also involved in the formation of your cheese and pickles and various other food items, right? Cheese and pickles. Now, if you think about it, when we are talking about the food items, one of the things which we said was curd. Another food item which we eat regularly, which is in South India, it is one of the majorly consumed food, that is your idli and dosa. Now, if you think about it, if you've ever seen your mother making these two delicacies at home, you must have seen that one of the major component is the curd, right? Why is it important to add the curd in it? Because again, the curd contains lactobacillus, right? So what happens is that this lactobacillus helps in the fermentation of the idli and dosa batter, right? And apart from the bacteria, yeast is also utilized for the same. So bacteria and yeast helps in fermentation of rice idli, fermentation of rice idli and dosa batter, right? Rice idli and dosa batter. So in this way we see that how the microorganisms help in the formation of the curd and also in the food material that we are consuming on the daily basis, right? So remember students, the name of the bacteria is quite important, that which of the bacteria is utilized for the formation of curd. So the lactobacillus is utilized, and how does it help in the formation? It starts multiplying in the milk, right? Once you add the lactobacillus into the warm milk, it starts reproducing, that is, it starts multiplying in the milk and thus converting the milk into the curd, right? Now, next we are going to talk about another important factor, that is the bakery products like your bread and your cakes and pastries. For this for basically understanding that how it takes place, we are going to perform as a very simple activity. What we are going to do is that in this activity we are going to take half kg of maida. You must have heard of this half kg of maida, right? In this we are going to add a little amount of sugar, small amount of sugar. And what else you are going to add? We are going to add yeast, and we are going to add warm water. Now, this whole mixture we are going to knead it, so that what is happening, we get a dough out of it, right? So we are going to knead and make a dough. Knead and make dough. Now, this dough needs to be kept outside for some time. What you will see after some time is this, something like this phenomena which you are able to see in this video is something which you will observe when you knead it and you keep it out time. So suppose this is the bowl in which this much of kneaded dough was there. As the time passes, what happens is it will keep on increasing, that is, the volume keeps on increasing. As you can see in this video, that in the beginning the dough was really small in amount, but as the time passed, you can see the dough filled the whole bowl, right? So how does this happen? What is the process that is taking place inside this dough, and why is it why the volume is increasing, right? So why is the dough rising? That is the question. So the dough is rising because of the presence of yeast, right? Yeast is responsible for this phenomena. What does yeast do? It reproduces rapidly whenever it finds a suitable environment, right? What is the suitable environment? As you can see, we added warm water, we added sugar. Sugar provides the nutrition to the yeast, warm water provides optimum temperature, and what happens is, as soon as the proper environment is found by the yeast, it starts reproducing rapidly. During this process, what happens? It produces carbon dioxide, right? So, large amount of carbon dioxide is produced during the process. This carbon dioxide, that is the bubble of this carbon dioxide, causes the dough to rise. Now, when you will touch this particular dough, that is the dough which is swollen, you will find that it has small pores in it. The reason is that the bubbles of the gas causes the rising of the dough, and this kind of dough is utilized for making your bakery items like bread, cakes and pastries, right? So yeast is used for the baking, it is used frequently in the baking industry. For all the kinds of baking material, yeast is utilized because of this particular property, right? So now, once we've understood the usage, that how yeast is important for the baking industry, let's talk about another important use of the yeast which has been done for centuries now, right? And what is that process? That is commercial use of the microorganism, that is yeast, right? What is that process? Where the microorganisms are used in the large scale production of the alcohol, wine and acetic acid, that is vinegar. You must have seen vinegar at your home also. All of this is all of this is produced on large scale. That is, when we say commercial use, that means it is formed in large scale, and it is sold all over the world, right? So this is done with the help of the microorganism, especially yeast, right? How does this happen? Let's understand the whole process of with the help of an activity. What we are going to do in this activity is we are going to take a 500 ml beaker that is filled up to 3/4 with water. In this, we are going to add 2 to 3 spoons of sugar, right? Now, in this activity, we are taking sugar and we are adding it. When we are talking about fermentation, we utilize the plants like, we utilize fruits, we utilize rice and wheat and barley. All of these things are utilized. But in this activity, we are using 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar. Then what we are going to do, we are going to add half spoon of yeast powder. Yeast powder is quite easily available. If you go to a general store and ask for it, you will be easily able to get this powder. Now, once you add the yeast powder to the sugar solution, you are going to keep it in the warm place for 4 to 5 hours. After you have kept it, the observation that you need to make is that of the smell. So open it and smell the solution. You will find a very peculiar smell coming from the solution. This smell indicates that the sugar has been converted into alcohol, right? This peculiar smell is of the alcohol that is produced by the sugar. When we are talking about the commercial production of alcohol, what exactly is used, the sugar that we are using at the home is not the one which is utilized to make alcohol. Then what exactly is used, or what is the raw material on which the yeast acts upon? So the sugar that we obtain is the plant sugar, and that is the natural sugars which is obtained from grains like barley, wheat and rice. Apart from that, it is also obtained from the fruit juices, right? Like we all know that wine is, a alcohol which is obtained from the juice of the sugar. So the natural sugar which is there, which the yeast acts upon, right? So what happens is that yeast is added to the natural sugar and it is kept, as we saw, for some time. And usually when in the case of alcohol, it is kept for long times and different kinds of methods are utilized for making the alcohol. The end product that you receive, it has gone under various processes. Basically, if suppose we are adding the fruit juices, right, so the crushed grapes are utilized for that and some yeast is added and kept for long time. Then it is refined, then it is cleaned so that any pulp which might be there is removed, and there are different steps in this. But the main thing that we need to understand over here is that for making alcohol, what is being used? Yeast is being used. And this process of conversion of the sugar into alcohol is called as the fermentation. In the fermentation process, there are two things which are released. First is the alcohol and other is the carbon dioxide. So, what is fermentation? It is the process of conversion of sugar into alcohol. This process was first discovered by Louis Pasteur in the year 1857, and since then it has been utilized for ages, for decades it is being utilized, and nowadays large scale production is done with the help of this process, right? So in this way we see how the yeast and different other microorganisms help us in the food industry, or rather I should say the food and beverage industry, right? Now once we have understood the whole process, now let's move on. In this session we are going to talk about the medicinal use of microorganisms. Also we are going to discuss that how do these microorganisms help us in increasing the fertility of the soil and reducing the amount of garbage or the waste in our environment, right? So first of all, we are going to discuss the different kinds of medicinal use that are there of the microorganisms, right? Now, all of you must have gone to a doctor one or the other time, and many times you would have noticed that for whenever you are ill, the doctor either gives you the medicines that are antibiotics in the form of pills or in the form of injections. This antibiotic that we are given by the doctors are obtained from the microorganisms. So what are the antibiotics? These are the medicines which kill or stop the growth of the disease causing microorganisms. And the important part is that these antibiotics are obtained from the microorganisms itself, right? So antibiotics are the medicine, as the name suggests, antibiotics, right? So it helps in killing the microorganisms, or it helps in stopping the growth of the microorganism that cause disease in our bodies, right? Antibiotics are produced from, usually they are produced from the bacteria, and they are produced from the fungi. These are the two groups which are responsible for the production of the antibiotics. Now, when we say antibiotics, what are the examples? You must have heard the name of streptomycin, right? You also must have heard the name of tetracycline, right? These are some of the common antibiotics that are used by the doctors, and also erythromycin. These are few examples of the antibiotic that are used, that are prescribed by the doctors. There are various other antibiotics as well. All of these antibiotics are some of the these three are some example of the antibiotic that is produced with the help of your microorganisms like fungi and bacteria, right? Now, the use of antibiotic is not only seen in the case of human beings, but also we see that antibiotics are mixed with the livestock, right? These are mixed with the food. These are mixed with the food of the livestock, of livestock, so that these livestock, when we say, that means the cattle and the hens, that is the poultry, it is mixed with their feed, antibiotics, and they're given to the livestock. Why is it so? So that any kind of disease that might be present in the livestock can be prevented. We already know livestock is a very important part of the agricultural industry, because it provides us with milk, meat, and also it provides us with eggs, right? So for the prevention of diseases, the food is the antibiotics are mixed with the food. Whenever there is an onset of a disease, antibiotics are given to the to your animals. Apart from the livestock, that is the cattle, it is also utilized in the poultry to check the onset of any kind of disease. Then there are diseases in the plants as well, and the antibiotics are used to reduce, or to cure the disease in the plants. So this antibiotic, like we already said, are manufactured by growing specific kinds of microorganisms, and then are used to cure variety of diseases. So these are produced with the help of produced with the help of microorganisms. And what are the classes which help it? It's bacteria and fungi, right? So now, once we've understood about the antibiotics, let's talk about the discovery of the antibiotics. So the discovery of the antibiotics was, you can say, an accident. How it happened was that the scientist Alexander Fleming was working on a disease causing bacteria, right? He was working on a culture of the disease causing bacteria. The year was 1929, right? So this is an example of the kind of setup that he might be working on, right? So this is the culture of the bacteria, and Fleming was working on a culture of a disease causing bacteria. He had after keeping that culture for some time, he noticed that there were spores of some green mold present on the petri dish, right? As you can see over here, there is a kind of mold that is present in this petri dish. In the similar way, on the petri dish of Alexander Fleming, on his culture, he saw the spores of the green mold. There he observed that the green mold was not only preventing the growth of the bacteria, but also it had killed some of the bacteria, right? So over there he saw that the presence of this green mold was very important in checking the growth of the bacteria. In this way, he saw that in this way he first discovered the penicillin, right? So the mold that was growing in his petri dish was penicillin. So penicillin, students, is the first antibiotic which was formed, right? And the penicillin is formed from the fungus called as penicillium, right? Over here you can see the example of the culture. This is without the antibiotic, right? So this is without antibiotic, and this is with the presence of antibiotic, right? And you can see that over here the bacteria are increasing in number, they are easily growing, whereas in the case of this particular slide you can observe that the bacteria are being killed, right? So this is this slide, this video helps us in understanding the function of the antibiotic, right? And this was a very, very important, you can say it was it revolutionized the medicine world, and it provided the very first antibiotic, and thereafter more and more researches were made, and it was seen that there are various other fungal as well as bacteria, fungus as well as bacteria, which produces specific kind of antibiotics against the microorganisms, right? Now, when we are talking about the antibiotics that we take, or it is given to the animals, it is very important to understand the dosage of the antibiotic. It is not medicine which can be taken lightly. It should always be taken with the prescription. Always remember, the antibiotics should not be subjected to self medication. Self medication means that you should not take the antibiotics without the prescription of a qualified doctor. It should always be taken with the prescription. Also, suppose the doctor has given you the antibiotics for 5 days, you should always complete the course that is prescribed by the doctor. So it is always said that there is a course of the antibiotic medicine. That means it can be of 3 days, it can be 5 days, depending on the severity of the disease. The doctor, gives you the medicine, and he or she gives you the medicine for some duration. One should always complete that prescribed duration. You might start feeling better. Let's say if the medicine was of 5 days, but only after 3 days you start feeling better. This doesn't mean that you will stop the medication. Always complete it, so that complete eradication of the disease causing microbes can happen, right? So it is like I said, it is important to complete the course that is prescribed by the doctor. Also, the medicine, that is the antibiotics, shouldn't be taken unnecessarily. Why? Because if we take the antibiotics when it is not needed, or in the wrong dosage, that means you need it only for 3 days and you take it for 5 to 7 days, what will happen that the antibiotics will not be effective, or they might be less effective when you actually need it, right? So to avoid any kind of problems in the usage of antibiotics, there is always a prescribed dose which should be taken with the help of a doctor. Also, if you take antibiotics unnecessarily, it may kill the beneficial bacteria that is present in the body. This beneficial bacteria is usually present in your intestine to help in digestion, right? So you must have noticed that one of the side effects of antibiotic is diarrhea, and usually whenever the doctor prescribes antibiotics, he will give you a medicine along with it to avoid any kind of stomach upset, right? So that is the reason why unnecessary usage of antibiotics should be avoided. Now, these are, although antibiotics act on a large range of microorganisms, but there is virus, virus is a particular organism on which the antibiotics are not useful. That is why whenever you are suffering from a common cold, there is no antibiotic that can fight against that, right? So antibiotics are not effective on the viruses, right? So this is one of the limitations of the antibiotic. So this was a type of medicine which is produced and is used widely in the medicine industry. Now another kind of, or another you can say, the discovery which is very very important, is now effective against this particular microorganism, that is virus. We've seen that virus is a kind of microorganism which is not affected by any kind of antibiotic. So how do we fight, or how do we avoid getting the diseases that are caused by virus? So for this, a special kind of medicine is used, and that is, or rather I should say, a special kind of technique is used, which is vaccination. What is vaccination? How does it work? Let's understand that. So before we move on to understanding vaccines, there is a term that we need to understand, and that is antibodies, right? Do not get confused with the antibiotic, because antibiotic is a medicine that is prepared outside the body. It is something which we take from the outside in the form of pills and injections. Antibody is a totally different term. This is a cell that is produced by the body, right? What happens is that antibody is produced by the body to kill any kind of disease carrying microbe which might enter our body. So whenever you are suffering from a disease, the antibodies are produced to fight the invader, right? So to understand that whether or not a person is suffering from the disease, usually the antibodies are counted. If the antibodies are more than normal, it indicates that there is some or the other kind of infection. There might be a microbe which is present inside the body, and that is causing the disease, right? So antibody is an important part of our immune system, and this is what the vaccine, the concept of vaccine uses. So let's understand that how does vaccine actually work. The very first thing which we need to understand is that whenever the body, whenever there is the entrance of a disease carrying microbe inside our body, what happens is that WBC, or rather I should say the antibodies, are produced, right? These antibodies fight against that disease, right? Now these antibodies have a tendency to remember, right? So to remember that what kind of microbe did it fight, and how did it do so. So antibody remembers how to fight the microbes if it enters again. If it enters again. So what happens in the first step is that whenever microbe enters the body, antibodies are produced. The first reaction, the very first time when the microbe enters the body, the reaction is quite, it's quite slow, and the amount of antibody produced is also less. But when the second time the same microbes enter the body, what happens is the number of antibodies that are produced are increased. Also, they know exactly how to fight that microbe. So specific kind of antibodies are produced to fight the microbe. Now this power of the immune system of remembering, right, the memory of the immune system is utilized by the vaccine. What happens, how is vaccine working? As you can see in this particular video, wherein a dead or accumulated, that means a dead, or you can say a weakened microbe is injected into the body. So this injection carries the weak or dead microbe. Now when it enters the body, this reaction which you are seeing is of the antibodies, right? So these antibodies give the first reaction, and that reaction is what? It is quite slow, right? And Apart from that, this reaction is having less number of antibodies. Now, what will happen that once the very first interaction of the microbe happens with the help of the vaccine that contains dead or weak microbe. Remember students, these microbes do not have the capability to cause the disease. This vaccine, when introduced into the body, causes an immune reaction, that is, antibodies are produced. These antibodies that are produced are now ready to fight with the dead or weakened microbe. That microbe, let's say let's take an example, that dead or weakened microbe was of polio, right? When it is introduced in the body, specific kind of antibody is produced which fights polio. But this antibody, the very first reaction is slow and the number of antibodies is also less. Now, after the vaccination is complete, say after a few months or 6 months later, 7 months later, the polio, that is the microbe of the polio, which has the capability to cause disease, somehow enters the body of a healthy person. Then what happens is, second reaction happens. That means the reaction where the antibody remembers how to fight that microbe. So it produces the perfect way in which it fights the microbe. It produces large number of antibodies which fight the microbe and are successful in killing it, right? So this is the way how the vaccine works. So basically, vaccine works on the memory of the immune system of our body, right? So I hope you were able to understand this concept. It's a very, very important concept to understand, students. And you can see that how the vaccine is actually using our own immune system to fight against the microbes, especially the microbe that we are talking about here is the virus, right? So it is very, very important that we vaccinate. We always should get vaccines for the kids, right? Now, there have been diseases against which number of vaccines have been prepared. Diseases like cholera, diseases like tuberculosis, smallpox, and even in dogs, rabies, hepatitis, all of these vaccines have been developed. Polio and so these are the diseases, viral as well as bacterial, against which the vaccines have developed. So who was the person who first discovered the vaccine? The person who first discovered the vaccine was Edward Jenner, right? He discovered the vaccine for smallpox in the year 1798, right? So he discovered the vaccine against smallpox, right? So this is how the vaccine works. Now, Paheli has a question that why are children and infants given vaccination? You must have seen around you and many times in TV also, government is advertising regarding the importance of vaccination. It is encouraging, the government always encourages the parents to take their small kids to the doctors and complete all the vaccinations that are there, right? Why is it necessary for the children to get vaccinated? You will always see that vaccination is always, it is always emphasized that you should take your children for the vaccination. The reason is that the vaccination is very, very important. It is essential for protection. It is essential to protect the children against all of these diseases. There are different diseases against which the vaccination are given to the children, like polio, smallpox, hepatitis. All of these are given to the children to protect them. Like I've already told you, the vaccine works on the memory of your antibodies. So what happens exactly is that when the vaccination is given to a small child, From that time only, the immunity of the child keeps on developing. And the course of the vaccination is usually for a few years. The infants are given vaccination up to 6-7 years, and the whole course, it has to be completed so that the person remains immune to those diseases, right? So one of the most successful, it is one of the most successful operations or the programs that was launched by Indian government, and that program is the Pulse Polio program. You must have heard so many times about the program. Now, why am I saying that it is quite successful? Because Pulse Polio program was to vaccinate the children against polio, right? So Pulse Polio program was the disease against polio, and it is successful because in India we have successfully eradicated polio, right? So vaccination has helped us in eradicating a number of diseases including polio, and in the world, major portions of the country are now free of the disease called as the smallpox, right? So such kind of diseases have been eradicated with the help of vaccine, right? So vaccine is one of the major, you can say a major revolution. It's a major discovery which helps the human race to get protected against various kind of viral diseases as well as bacterial diseases. Apart from that, vaccines are also given to animals, right? The same phenomena is used for the animals also, and the aim is to protect the animals from the diseases, right? So this is the importance of vaccine, and this is how it works. I hope you were able to understand it quite clearly. Now, let's talk about another important, you can say, usage of the microorganism, that is increasing the soil fertility. How does it do so? Let's understand. Now, the plants need nitrogen for their growth, right? What happens is nitrogen is present in abundance in our environment, but nitrogen is present in the form of gas, which is in a non-usable form for the plants, right? So nitrogen gas cannot be utilized by the plants as such. So what happens is that the nitrogen gas needs to be fixed so that the plants can use it for their growth and for making different substances. What happens that there are certain kinds of microbes which have the ability to fix this nitrogen gas into usable forms, right? What are these microbes? These microbes are called as the biological nitrogen fixers. Biological nitrogen fixers. When these organisms fix the atmospheric nitrogen, what happens is they help in increasing the fertility of the soil. If you have a garden, or if you have a gardener in your society, ask that person that what kind of fertilizer is he using to put it in the plants. You will see that the fertilizer that he is using is rich in nitrogen, right? That is the reason why, and that fertilizer actually helps in increasing the soil fertility. That is the reason why these biological nitrogen fixers are really important, because they naturally help in increasing the soil fertility. On the other hand, when we talk about the fertilizers, these are the chemical products which is utilized and are quite not good for our environment, right? So in this way, we see how these biological nitrogen fixers actually help us in increasing the soil fertility. This is one of the biological nitrogen fixer called as the blue-green algae, or your cyanobacteria. This is one of the organism which is able to fix the nitrogen gas that is present in the environment into the usable forms. Right? Now, let's move on and perform an activity which will help us in understanding that how these microbes are able to help us in cleaning the environment. what we are going to do is we are going to make two pots, and each pot will be filled half with the soil. In one pot that is marked as A, we will put plant waste. What are the plant waste? That is the vegetable waste, the waste that is produced by your animals, maybe say cow dung or anything. Vegetable peels, fruit peels, all of these, or plant twigs, branches, leaves, all of these you will put in pot A. Then in the pot B, what you will put? You will put things like polythene bags, empty glass bottles, and broken plastic toys in the pot B. Then what you're going to what you're going to do is you're going to cover it with the soil, and you're going to put these pots aside for 3 to 4 weeks. After that, you will observe the pots. What you will see is that in the pot A, the waste material that was there has decomposed completely, whereas in the pot B, no decomposition has taken place. So in pot A, what happens is decomposition has taken place. That means you will not be able to find the vegetable peels, the fruit peels, or any kind of plant waste which you have put in that pot. But in the pot B, you will find that no decomposition has taken place, right? So the plastic bottles, the glass bottles, the plastic toys which you have put in pot B will remain as it is. This shows that how the microbes help us in removing the garbage that is being produced. Some of the garbage that can be easily removed by the microbes, right? This decomposition which has taken place is also useful for us because it is what is converted. This decomposition converts the waste material into the manure. You must have seen your gardeners in the school or in your societies, and even at your home, they are putting manure in the plants. Why? Because this manure has a lot of nutrients which is utilized by the plant. So when we talk about cleaning the environment, there are mainly two kinds of waste products that are produced. One is the plant or the kitchen waste, which contains all of these things, that is fruits, vegetable peels, animal remains, animal dung, right? All of these are your things which are the organic matter. Then there are other kind of things like your plastic bottles and your plastic toys, polythene bags, glass bottles, and so on. These can have, on these things there is no action of microbes that can take place. No action of microbes. So microbes do not act on it and cannot change the form. But over here, with the help of action of microbes, the decomposition of these things takes place, and what is obtained? Manure is obtained. Now this manure is rich in nutrients and is and is utilized by the plant for the growth, right? So in this way we see that how the microbes act upon these organic waste, and they decompose them and they convert it into the manure. That is, they release whatever nutrient were inside the body of the plant or the animal back into the soil, which is utilized by the plant, right? This is how the animals, that is the microbes, help in converting the harmful garbage, the smelly garbage, into useful things like manure. And also, if we can actually use this method in producing manure on the commercial basis as well, right? So this will not only help in cleaning the environment, but it will also help in reducing the amount of inorganic fertilizers that we are using, thus reducing water and soil pollution. So in this way, we see how the microorganisms are important for us. And when we were saying friendly microorganisms, this is the way how they act as friends for us. Now let's move on and answer some of the questions.